I know they lost the series 3-1 to the Doyers, but I left that series, surprisingly, with a more positive outlook than when the series started. And remember, I said 83 wins, and I said they were going to lose the series 3-1, and they did. However, I think they should have split that series. They also now have 7 dudes on the injured list. So to go against the big bad Dodgers, you should have split with 7 dudes out. I actually said, you know what? This team's decent. And then they go and they beat the Padres. All I'm saying is I think there's still a big block of Cardinal Nation that thinks this team is going to suck. And I don't think that's the case. I don't know if they're going to be elite, but I think they're going to be pretty good. That offense yesterday, dude, they got a lot of guys that can do damage.
Yeah.
And they have other guys who are on the injured list coming back. It's going to make that team even deeper. There's a lot of dudes in that lineup.
You get Newt back. Dude. Walker had a nice catch in the outfield.
My gosh.
That was awesome.
That was a thing of beauty. Number 9 on the top 10 for Sports Center.
I worry about a big body like that. Sprawling
laying out.
Injuring other players on the team.
Oh, that's another. I mean, like, he's a big dude. When you run that fast and you extend your arm and you fall, that's where you sublux your shoulder. Your shoulder pops out like that.
Catch an AC joint or something like that.
Yeah, that's usually your AC joint's right here. That's usually like falling into the wall.
Ugh.
And then it bruises so bad you got dead arm. Your AC joint, man, you hit that thing, dude. Your whole side of your body is numb. You can't move it. It hurts like hell.
The Cardinals did everything right yesterday, though.
They did.
They entered the game. And I told you guys yesterday, I don't care what they do against the Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, because those are the real teams in the National League. I think the Cardinals actually profile very similarly to the Padres. They have a lot of talent in their lineup. It's very aesthetic to look at, and then the pitching is shot. And you dodged Dylan's season this series, which is cool. But for Kyle Gibson to go 7 innings, you set the tone. You scored up 3 runs, I think, in the first inning. You showed some power with Wilson Contreras. Brendan Donovan even got in on the act with a home run later in the game.
He had a couple hits.
Yeah. I think maybe even 3.
He was going for the cycle?
Something like that. But with Kyle Gibson going 7 strong, because we were talking about, oh my gosh, we got bullpen issues on day 4.
Yeah.
We're day 4 into this thing. We already got bullpen issues. For him to set the tone, we just got to get to Friday. Friday's the off day.
Yep.
You got 3. But for him to go 7, everything's going to reset with the bullpen on Friday when everybody gets the day off. The pitching's going to be fine. Kyle Gibson going 7 strong to kind of give the bullpen a little bit of a break. That was really, really good. 7 strong. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe, especially hot off of Lance Lynn dealing in Los Angeles. You know what? Maybe this offseason, they signed a bunch of Cy Young players.
They might have.
Probably
now, hold
not.
on, though.
Probably not.
To be fair, I love Lance Lynn. It was 4 innings.
Rain delay, though.
Rain delay. A lot of traffic.
Lot of traffic.
But
he got out.
Yeah.
Worked out of jams, so I'm giving him all the credit and respect in the world. It was 4 innings.
Yeah, it wasn't that great.
So
let's be honest.
I was not that impressed.
Yeah.
I did a Jim thing. You said dealing. To me, dealing, you got to go at least 6, I think.
There you go, Charlie.
Well, you know what? There was
a weird shove. I intentionally did not say shove.
There was a weird weather situation. He would have went at least 5 or 6. I'd be more concerned, not just because of the first turn through, but it'll be interesting to see what Miles Michaelis does. Zach Thompson, every mistake was hit out of the ballpark the other day. He can be better than that. I don't know what his ceiling is as a starter right now. I don't know how many starts he's going to get. He may only get a couple more when Sonny Gray comes back.
Who was the Daddy Padres pitcher last night, and was he any good?
First of all,
I know he got lit up, but is he supposed to be good?
I just love the fact that he throws a knuckleball, but he throws it, 27% of the time. Like, that's pretty amazing.
Yes,
he's a knuckleball pitcher.
It's not like you're expecting it.
But he's not Tim Wakefield. He doesn't throw the knuckleball 85-90% of the time. He throws a knuckleball. The graphic when I was watching the game beginning, I believe 27% of the time, he has a couple different variations of fastballs. Guys will throw a cutter and a 2-seamer or whatever it is. But that's kind of interesting. Imagine if you're facing a pitcher and 25% of the time you're going to get a knuckleball.
That's
now,
hardcore,
he was
right?
throwing 92 with a fastball. I just think that's a very interesting profile for a guy. You never really see a guy like that.
So as a pitcher when you're a kid, are you like, I like this knuckleball thing?
Everybody Cole, you know, anybody that plays baseball, as you're playing catch your buddy, you always try the knuckleball and
So just hold it like this and throw it like that. I mean, that's
on every team, there's a dude who, as they're playing catch, you're like, damn, this dude's got a crazy knuckleball when he just plays around with it.
So if you could have that in your arsenal and you could throw 93 miles an hour, like you're different.
Well, yeah. Can you think of anybody that does that?
No.
That's why it was so interesting to me.
You either have guys who throw it once a season,
right,
or you have guys who throw it basically every pitch. R.A. Dickey, for my generation.
So an R.A. Dickey,
R.A. Dickey,
yeah, he's probably going to throw it 90% of the time. Maybe you have one little breaking ball that you just show. Maybe you have a fastball just to trick people. But the Tim Wakefields of the world, the R.A. Dickeys of the world, those guys throw the knuckleball 90% of the time.
How good was Tim Wakefield?
He had a long career. He pitched for 15, 17 years.
Between Pittsburgh and Boston, yeah.
Let's look it up.
90s into
I remember playing
2000.
him on video game.
Did he just pass?
Yeah.
Oh.
And did his wife also pass?
That part I don't know.
Dude, he's not that old. Played in the 90s?
He's like 50.
Oh, yeah.
I think he was battling something
Cancer of some sort.
Oh, really?
silently. What was the story? Excuse me.
The story.
Woo!
Hey.
Woo!
Sorry.
I think the story was that Kurt Schilling broke the story when he wasn't supposed to or something on a podcast, and then people came after him for that. But we got Tim Wakefield, started his career, 92, ended it in 11. He ended his career.
My God.
He ended his career at 44 years old.
That is a
200
run.
wins on the button.
He made some money.
Here's the story.
Yeah.
Tim Wakefield's widow, Stacy, dies 5 months after the Boston Red Sox pitcher.
How did she die? That's horrible.
I don't know if I want to know. You know.
Let's see. I'm looking.
Okay.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun. Get him in, by the way. Audi Exchange text line in Kirkwood, 855-282-8255. Yeah, I know. Text line's blowing up. I'll get to all y'all.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
9 o'clock hour.
We're breaking things
We got
down.
Cardinals to talk about for the second. But one more thought, because I did see a couple people complaining, and, you know, people are always going to complain on social media, even when things go well.
What are they bitching about?
They were complaining that the Cardinals have 12 on base. And that is a very high number. Well, here's my response to you. If you get 14 hits, it's inevitable that the left on base total is going to be high. Not everybody can get knocked in. So if you're getting 14 hits, you got a ton of traffic on the base paths. The innings at the end at some point. Is 12 a little bit high? Yes. But that's still kind of just inevitable with the way that you were knocking the ball around. Yeah. So I don't even think it was that big of a deal. I'm serious. I'm praising the Cardinals because that was game one. You set the tone. In the early stages, I like to kind of compartmentalize and just view things series by series because we can't do playoff talk after every single game on Game 5.
No.
We can't do that.
Can't do it, Cole.
So I'm not interested in that. You set the tone for this series. You can only worry about the uniform across from you right now.
That's right.
You know what? Your bullpen is in a better position for the next 2 days than theirs. Then you have opening day here on Thursday. It's going to be a hell of a day.
Oh, boy.
This show is going to be down at Billy's on Broadway.
Billy's on Broadway. I want all y'all there, by the way. Come down and party with us early.
And then Friday, you got the off day. Everything resets with the pitching. It's going to be good. So I think this was a really important game for this week. They set the tone. Kyle Gibson was awesome. The base paths were busy with full Cardinals. I was really impressed. And I'm not even kidding. I was kind of kidding about Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn being a bunch of Cy Young guys. I'm not kidding about everything else. The Cardinals, I think, really set the tone for this week.
And by the way, just so we have the
so win the series.
the facts.
Yeah, go ahead.
So and Schilling got crap for this, but Schilling is friends with Wakefield. Basically, at the end, he heard Wakefield was going to pass, and he kind of said, "Let's pray for him." But the family didn't want it out there because he said that Wakefield had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer and that his wife has pancreatic cancer.
Oh, God.
So the family didn't want that out there. They wanted it private. And I know, again, it all gets back to politics. People want to crush Kurt Schilling. He was basically saying, pray for my guy. But the family did not want that information out there. And then she passed 5 months later. So she had... Just so everybody knows, she had pancreatic cancer. He had an aggressive form of brain cancer.
Oh, God almighty.
So that's according to People.
That's devastating.
I think that was exacerbated, too, by the fact that I think it was Veritek's wife who went after him on Twitter. It was
after Schilling.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the former teammates' wife, I think it was Jason Varitek, went after him, which
Really?
just made it even worse.
And I get that, but this all gets back to the women's basketball thing. Anything Kurt Schilling does, he's also a political lightning rod. So if he does anything because he's a conservative, that side's going to back him, the other side's going to attack him.
Yeah.
I think in this particular story, he was trying to be a friend and just say, hey, pray for Tim. He's not doing well. And just the family didn't want the information out there about the cancers for both of them.
Yeah, I get that. St. Louis media, with the exception of Slayton, sounds like listening to Cubs homers. This team is awful. We had 4 green seats for 12 years. Canceled them after last year, Brett. I mean, all right.
But are they awful? They were awful last year. You think they're going to be awful this year? Awful.
And to Charlie's point, because he said this, I think, on yesterday's show, that they kind of they did mail it in the final 2 months of the season. So
on purpose, they should have, by the way.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Play the young guys. Mason Wynn got called up. Play the young guys. That's the time to experiment when you know you're already done. So go out there and experiment around. You didn't have to play all of your stars all the time. You didn't have to play regular lineups. They tinkered around a little bit. That's fine. And obviously they sold at the deadline, so that also hurt their roster. And so, yeah, I don't think that they were necessarily, despite everything that was terrible, were they 71 win bad or were they 77 win bad? Now, it's bad is bad, for sure. But it's about the difference between how do you get to good, how far away are you from being good? I don't think that they're a good team this year.
What's good?
90 wins?
To me, I mean,
well,
90's pretty damn good in modern baseball.
that's
85 to 90 wins?
Okay, I think
I think that'd be really
there's
good.
a big difference.
In the mix.
No, I know. I do think there's a big difference between 90, 85, and 95. Right? I know, like 95. Usually, that team is a World Series contender. 90, okay, you're pretty dang good.
Pretty dang good.
There's going to be a million teams that fall between 83, 84, 85, 86. There's going to be a lot of teams like that in baseball, and I think it's fair to call them good.
Fine. For me,
Middle of the road.
If I call you, when I say that the Cardinals are trying to build back to be a good team, I mean to a point where you are not so far and away removed from the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Braves class, which they currently are. Even if they do finish top 2 in the division, which I think that's where they'll probably land. Charlie, you said that you think they'll land 3rd, which is a nightmare scenario for us in this show because we want them to be one or the other.
I said 3rd place?
I said 3rd. I think Charlie said
I said 2nd.
I think Charlie said 2nd. I said the Cubs, the Reds, the Cardinals.
Gotcha.
Okay, realistically, this could happen. And I know the Cardinals just lost 3 or 4 to the Dodgers, but would it shock you, let's just say Dodgers or Braves, would it shock you if one or both of those teams won 105 games?
No.
And the Cardinals won 85. So think about that. That would be, those teams are elite. Cardinals, okay.
I'd say you're fine.
Pretty good, whatever you want to call it. Pretty good, fine. Okay, you're 85. You probably get in the playoffs at 85, but yet you're 20 wins potentially behind the Braves and the Dodgers, which most people think are the class of the National League and probably all of baseball.
For me to be impressed with the Cardinals this year, they have to win a playoff series.
That's a very fair bar to have.
Thank you.
And you know what? That's what I think is the biggest loss over the last year is that a lot of people have changed their expectations. If you remember going into last year, the fans were tired of 86 to 88 to 91 wins, winning a bad Central, maybe getting a wild card, and the first round playoff exits. Fans were asking for more than that. But then 2023 was so bad with 71 wins, it almost reshuffled the deck to, I think a lot of people now want to get back to the 86 wins, which we had been complaining about that for the 3 previous seasons.
Yeah, I think you got to win a playoff series because if you just get there, no matter how you get there, if you get there because you're surprisingly really good and then you crap out in the first round of the playoffs anyway, then that eventually becomes disappointing as the expectations change throughout the season. and the current situation, the current expectations is the NL Central is going to be terrible. If you win a terrible division and then you make the playoffs and lose in the first round of those playoffs anyway, then it's going to be, well, you only got in because you were in the NL Central. If you were in a good division with competitive teams, you wouldn't have been there. So I think in both scenarios, I think it makes sense for the argument to be, in order to be impressed. No, I'm saying be impressed. You can do a lot of things to take a step in the right direction, but that's in part because of how bad last year was. So to be impressed, you got to win something in the postseason.
And that's where I still believe that fans, media, who are criticizing the Cardinals for not getting top-end starting pitching, one other guy, that's where, regardless of what happens in the regular season, if they match up, like just look at the Phillies. The Phillies are the perfect example for many reasons. Obviously, the Phillies beat the Cardinals 2 years ago. The Phillies made a nice run last year. But also, why did they do that? Do they spend money? Yes. Do they have great position players? Yes. On paper, when you know in a 3-game series, you're facing Nola and Wheeler, it's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different. And I'm sorry, Kyle Gibson was great last night. It's going to be different if the Cardinals line up in the playoffs, Sonny Gray and Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn or whatever the version is, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. People are saying, okay, we like the lineup. Bullpen could be great. It's just it's going to be hard to go on a run, in my opinion, with this starting rotation. That's why it's just really nice to have two dudes that you just feel good about them. Like I don't care how Nolan Wheeler do, and they have great success. You feel fantastic.
Great success.
Yeah.
You feel fantastic when they're starting your first 2 games of a playoff series. You're like, dude, I'll go to war with them.
Would you?
If you're the Cardinals, you're like, I feel good about Sonny Gray. Second guy, whether it's Miles Michaelis, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, you're kind of like, we'll see what happens. And that's how we felt, by the way, 2 years ago. And that's exactly what took place. Remember, they had Quintana going game 1. They had Michaelis going game 2. They didn't even get to their third starter.
Yeah. So Jordan Montgomery was of 0 playoff use, essentially.
Well, he came in that game, but yes, you're right.
Gotcha. I couldn't remember if it was Montgomery or Waino, but to everything that you're saying, that's why I think the argument about just get in the playoffs and see what happens, I think that argument is losing credibility, especially since a couple years ago they reformatted the playoffs. And so now, obviously it's the 3-game series, but once you get to the 5-game series, even if you advance, they're playing games on back-to-back days. You're not just playing one game every other day. Mm-hmm. You're playing one game and then another and then a day off. So you're playing pretty much 4 out of 5 days or 4 out of 6 days, however you want to take that. So the argument that you could possibly get away with only having 3 starters in a playoff series is basically axed, and now you have to have 4 starters in a playoff series, which a lot of teams already did that, but there was an argument to, if we really need it, if we have 3 guys who we're comfortable with, we'll overextend them a little bit with their starts. But you can't do that anymore. And so having a situation where, okay, Gray gets you 1. We like Sonny Gray. When he gets here, we'll like him, and if we're fast forwarding to the playoffs,
we hope we like him.
I mean, we hope we like him,
right? But even if you make a couple acquisitions at the deadline, and let's say one of them hits, one of them doesn't, kind of like Lester and Happ. I know that Happ was really good. John Lester wasn't that good. He was a 4 ERA. Off the top of my head, I hope that's correct.
But nowadays, that's not bad.
Yeah, but even so, I still think that having a guaranteed playoff starter of either Michaelis or Lynn or Gibson or possibly even worse 2 of those 3, that ain't a good situation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's
why I think that you can't win a World Series even if you're hot at the right time, because I don't think your pitching is going to be good for it.
You can, but I think it's the outlier. We talked about this yesterday with the 2011 World Series. You had an absolute stud ace in Chris Carpenter, and Tony La Russa masterfully bullpenned his way through that month of October. Which could they do that? Is Ollie the greatest bullpen manager? I don't think we've seen that yet. But in the postseason, you do have more off days. There's a lot more bullpenning. Look, you saw bullpen games in the frickin' World Series last year.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
where literally the teams are going to say, no, we're going to throw 9 dudes. We're going to have everybody get an inning in the World Series.
Here's actually one thing that I think weirdly plays in the Cardinals' favor. And again, I didn't want to do a bunch of playoff talk, but here we are. I think that the fact that they are nowhere near the Dodgers and the Braves and the Phillies, that they can't have a first-round bye this year. There's no way there's any sort of situation where the Cardinals win like 98 games and have a first-round bye.
I think that's fair.
I actually think, and we only have a sample size of 2 years to play off of, so we don't have enough data yet, but it's kind of looking like it's trending in the direction that teams with first-round byes who have to sit 5 days at the end of the season, that's not very good. And so if the Cardinals do win a playoff series and end up against a team who's been sitting for the better part of a week, that is actually very advantageous for the Cardinals. So that is kind of a weird scenario, but again, I don't think you're...
Sit for 5 days, man. You lose that mojo.
I know. I'm just... And then it gets to the point of what happens at the end of the season. What do you do with Goldie and how do we structure the roster? And you could go 100 million directions with this, but...
Well, good to see Arenado hit last night.
It is.
Yes.
It is an interesting exercise.
Did his swing look different?
Because he had a horrible series in L.A.
Yeah, he did.
His
he
finish looked
awkward.
weird. The way he was finishing his swing kind of looked like this half finish. It just looked different than what he normally does.
Yeah, people were talking about that. Charlie, the fans have to change their expectations because the organization clearly has to.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, I don't agree with what the organization is doing, but that's what they're doing. And that's where I feel like a lot of times media folks, we get the arrows from fans, which I understand, it's all good, for just speaking about the team realistically because we know what they're going to do and not going to do, right? I mean, every year I would love to say, hey, they should sign everyone. Yeah. I've been here 16, 17 years now. You know how the Cardinals are going to do business. You could have bet your life savings that the Cardinals were going to sign Sonny Gray. I mean, you knew Sonny Gray was the perfect Cardinal.
People knew in the middle of the season.
It was the most Cardinal signing ever. 34, whatever age, so you got shorter deal. Pretty dang good, but shorter deal. We always joke, boring dude and his family man in his mid-30s.
Yeah.
That's a Cardinal.
A good player who has age risk.
A good player who wants to live in Chesterfield.
Yeah.
Andrew Miller.
Next to Tuna.
There you go.
He was a good player, but it was his second free agency, so you know he'd been around a while.
Correct.
And a little bit of a bargain bin signing. I'm sorry, I'm not letting that go.
For Andrew Miller?
Yeah, he had all those good years, and then his contract year, he wasn't good anymore, and then bam.
So, did he have one good year with the Cardinals? Didn't we look this up?
Yeah, we did this a little bit
He
ago.
pitched his ass off during that playoff run. I mean, nonstop.
Oh, in Cleveland.
In 2016.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. He was a rock star. That was some of the best playoff baseball of my life was Andrew Miller.
That's how you can bullpen your way to a World Series. They didn't win, but they almost did. And frickin' Andrew Miller was a huge reason why. Remember, he wasn't their closer that year. Their closer was, and I forgot his name, but they had a
Cody
dude,
Allen?
I think it was Cody Allen.
So, baby.
Cody Allen was their closer, but they would bring Andrew Miller in 5th inning, 6th inning, 7th inning, 2 guys on, they need to strike out, boom. He strikes out 2 dudes, he goes an inning and 2/3, and he gets you to your closer.
Exactly. He was awesome. And that's another thing, speaking of bullpens, that's why I was not inspired by what I saw in L.A. from this baseball team, is because they lost in both directions. The first 2, the starters didn't even give them a chance because they got lit up immediately. And then the bullpen tried their damnedest in Game 3 to throw that game away. God bless Gallegos, who inherited the runner on second base to start the 10th inning. And I think he was the only reliever who didn't give up runs in that game. And then in the 4th game, your bullpen collapsed there too. So you had the starters getting buried in the first half. And I guess it depends on what your expectations are for the season for the bullpen, because I think everybody kind of has low expectations for the starters. So the first couple games kind of fit the bill, and that kind of proved everybody's preconceived notions correct. But if you don't think highly of the bullpen, then your preconceived notions were also proved correct in Game 3 and Game 4, even though you won Game 3.
Yeah, and my thing on that is you also got to remember, we didn't know, the public didn't know until the 4th game that Steven Matz was on a pitch count. But you damn well know the Cardinals knew that. So Ollie has to go into that whole series knowing in the final series, my pitcher's only going 80 pitches. He's only throwing 5 innings. So that's where in Game 2, which I brought up yesterday, that's where maybe, okay, I hate to punt a game when it's 5-zip, but if you know your pitcher is going to throw 80 pitches on Sunday, and you also know you're already banged up, right, with Riley O'Brien,
Yeah.
you really do have to manage that pen and be able to use a guy like Gallegos, hopefully only in games you can win, which they could have. If you don't throw Gallegos in Game 2, you can use him in 2 winnable games, which is Game 3 they did win. And then let's be real, they probably win Game 4 if they have better matchups in the bullpen.
Yeah, the Blue Jays just did that last night, which upset me with Genesis Cabrera, because they brought him in, and the announcer said that they're expecting a suspension. That he's appealing a situation or whatever from Tampa Bay where they got in a fight and he went after somebody.
Pushed somebody, didn't he?
Yeah, and so he gives up 2 home runs. They were getting crushed. He gave up 2 home runs, and they yanked him after like 17 pitches. And it's like, if you know he's going to get suspended and the game's already out of hand, just let him
Wear
go.
him out.
Just save everybody else and let him go. Just punt the game. Sorry.
Why didn't they do that?
I don't know. Because they just were tired of getting beat, and we're just like, all right, on to the next guy.
Yeah.
So what does he get, 3 games?
I don't know.
I thought it was
has not been the long arm of the law has not struck down yet.
this
For
is
relievers,
But they're expecting.
reliever suspensions are almost a good thing for them. It's rest. I know
Yeah.
it's early in the season,
Yeah.
but it's really hard to punish a reliever
Suspend
unless
me.
you gave him about 5 games.
although you're losing money. But Bernie analyzed the last 20 years of the World Series, and very few really good teams have won. When was the last time the Dodgers or the Braves won? Peckerwood.
How about 2020 and 2021?
So
Next
you had the
topic
COVID
is
year.
Bob Ramsey would say.
And then the 2021 Braves, they redid their whole outfield at the trade deadline. That was Adam
Yeah.
Duvall. It was Jorge Soler. It was Jock Peterson.
It was
The dude from the
Eddie Rosario.
Eddie Rosario.
Because Acuna blew out his ACL that season, so he wasn't even on the roster in the playoffs.
So pitching wise, would that have been still Fried?
Morton
Was Morton there?
yeah.
That's probably before Strider.
Was Soroka?
I gotta look this
was
up.
Soroka healthy?
I can't remember. I have a terrible memory now.